My stepdad abandoned me in the hospital to go on vacation. I called my dad. CPS got involved. When my mom tried to make me lie, I was 15 when I broke my leg during basketball practice. Not just a small break either. My shin bone snapped clean through when I landed wrong after a layup. The pain was so bad I actually passed out right there on the court. My coach called my mom and she showed up with my stepdad Brian. They'd been married for 2 years and Brian always acted like taking care of me was this huge burden. At the hospital, the doctor said I needed surgery to put pins in my leg. They'd have to keep me overnight, maybe 2 nights depending on how the surgery went. My mom seemed worried, but Brian kept checking his watch and sighing really loud. Finally, he pulled my mom into the hallway. I could hear them through the door. Brian was saying they had to leave for their Cancun trip in the morning, that they'd already paid for the resort and couldn't get a refund. My mom was saying maybe they should postpone it, but Brian wasn't having it. He said I'd be fine, that hospitals have nurses for a reason, that I was old enough to handle myself for a few days. The surgery was scheduled for 6 in the morning. When I woke up that next afternoon, my leg was in a cast, and I felt like garbage from the anesthesia. I reached for my phone to text my mom, but there was just a note on the table next to my bed. It said, "We left for Cancun, you'll be discharged tomorrow, take an Uber home, money is in your account." That was it. No, sorry, no we love you, nothing. They literally left me alone in a hospital the day after major surgery so they could go sit on a beach. I was so angry I started crying, which made the nurse come check on me. She asked where my parents were, and I showed her the note. Her face changed immediately. She left the room and came back with her supervisor. They asked me a bunch of questions about who was supposed to pick me up and where I was supposed to go after discharge. I told them the truth, that I was supposed to Uber home to an empty house and figure it out myself. The supervisor left and came back with this social worker named Miss Carter. She sat down next to my bed and asked if there was anyone else she could call, any other family who could come get me. That's when I remembered my real dad. My parents divorced when I was 8, and my mom had made it really hard for him to see me over the years. She'd cancel his weekends, not tell him about school events, basically pushed him out. But I still had his number saved to my phone. I gave it to Miss Carter and she called him right there. My dad answered on the second ring. When Miss Carter explained the situation, I could hear my dad yelling through the phone. Not at her, just yelling about how he couldn't believe they'd do this. He said he'd be there in 3 hours. He lived 2 states away but left work immediately and drove straight to the hospital. When my dad walked into my room, I started crying again. He hugged me so tight and kept saying he was sorry he let them push him away, that he should have fought harder to be in my life. My dad stayed with me that whole night, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair next to my bed. The next morning, the hospital said I could go home, but here's where it got messy. My dad wanted to take me back to his place until my mom got back from vacation. The hospital said they needed permission from my custodial parent. My dad called my mom in Cancun. She absolutely lost it, screaming about how he had no right to take me, that she'd call the cops, that he was trying to kidnap me. My dad put her on speaker so Miss Carter could hear. The social worker told my mom that leaving a minor alone after surgery was considered neglect, and that my dad taking me was actually the responsible thing to do. My mom hung up on them. 3 days later, my mom and Brian came back early from their trip. My mom showed up at my dad's apartment and demanded I come home immediately, but CPS had already opened an investigation based on what happened at the hospital. They wanted to interview me about my home life. That's when my mom sat me down and told me exactly what to say. She said to tell CPS that my dad was lying, that she'd arranged for a neighbor to check on me, that everything was fine. She made me practice the lies over and over, but when the CPS worker came to talk to me, I told her the truth. About the note, about being left alone, about my mom coaching me to lie. I showed her the screenshots of the note and my bank account where they deposited $50 for an Uber. My mom tried to interrupt and correct me, but the CPS worker told her to leave the room. A week later, my dad got emergency custody. My mom and Brian are fighting it in court, but 3 different doctors from the hospital wrote statements about what happened. I'm living with my dad now. My leg is healing, and for the first time in years, I feel like someone actually cares if I'm okay.